The Chargers are not done making moves as we head into week 1 of the regular season, and we're only 5 days away now from the Chargers playing the Raiders in Jim Harbaugh's first ever Charger game, and only 2 days away from the regular season starting when the Chiefs play the Ravens on Thursday Night Football. But we're not here to talk about the freaking Chiefs, man. And there's actually a lot that has been going on with the Chargers in terms of like the bottom of this roster. Let's go ahead and start off with the guys that are not on the practice squad anymore, because some of these might surprise you. One of them surprised me, but Robert Kennedy, the undrafted free agent from NC State, he was released from the practice squad in order to make room for Eric Tomlinson, the tight end, who is 32 years old. He's been in the NFL since 2016, so he is an NFL veteran. He last played for the Broncos in 2022, though, so he didn't play for any team in 2023. He is 6'6", 263 pounds, and a blocking tight end for sure. I mean, you can see he's got the size. He has only been targeted 38 times in his career, but he caught 27 of those, and he has 3 touchdowns. And it's funny because 2 of those touchdowns were actually for the Broncos in 2022. But this is definitely a guy that's going to be like mostly blocking for you on the inline spot at tight end. He's not really going to be lined up in the slot or at out wide especially, and he can be a sneaky target every once in a while, but yeah, you don't want him out there in the slot running routes for you. And now Isaiah Spiller has been released from the practice squad, and Isaiah Spiller, that one doesn't really surprise me because there are so many good running backs to choose from nowadays in the NFL, and this regime, like, they don't really have any connection to Isaiah Spiller, so they might as well cut their losses if they don't like him as a player. And he didn't really do much to convince them to keep him in practice, in OTAs, training camp, and even in the preseason, so doesn't really surprise me. Plus, we don't even need any more running backs, especially now because we signed Hassan Haskins to the final 53-man roster, and we had Jared Patterson on the practice squad. We got J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and Kamani Vidal also on the regular season squad, I guess, the actual roster. So we got all those guys in the rotation. Like, we are good at that running back spot, barring injury right now, so we'll see what happens in that room. But this move doesn't really surprise me. And also JT Woods, after he was released from that, or I guess waived from that final 53-man roster to make room for some of those other guys that we traded for and, you know, signed, like Hassan Haskins and Taylor Heinicke and Elijah Molden, JT Woods didn't clear waivers, and he is now actually on the Eagles practice squad. Now, I thought this was really interesting because the Eagles like JT Woods enough to get him a spot on their practice squad. I thought JT Woods would have cleared waivers and made it onto our practice squad because he's not really done anything at all in his career to, I guess, give any other team like some insight like, oh yeah, we need this guy. He does have the intangibles like the height, the speed. He's really athletic and he can hit hard, but he doesn't really play under control as well as he should be able to at this point in his career. You know, JT Woods, I would have liked him on the practice squad. I know Jesse Minter had a lot of good things to say about him at times in interviews, and he was also starting to get a little versatile. You know, he's starting to play outside cornerback as well as safety. He didn't make the practice squad. He's on the Eagles now, so we'll see what he can do with them. But, you know, JT Woods, that's another one of those Tom Telesco picks that just didn't really pan out. And JT Woods and Isaiah Spiller, both of those guys that are not even on the practice squad anymore, are 2 of those kind of high Tom Telesco picks that never really panned out. And Joe Ortiz and Jim Harbaugh, they're not going to be waiting around and let them stick around on this roster and practice squad to see if they can figure it out. They want guys that are going to allow them to win now. And I think, you know, the Isaiah Spiller move from being released from the practice squad and then JT Woods being released from this final 53, that kind of shows that they're serious. Chargers have also released Cornelius Johnson and Andrew Farmer from the practice squad in order to make room for Shaun Wade and Dez Fitzpatrick. So a lot of movement here on the bottom of the roster. Joe Ortiz said he's going to be churning that bottom of the roster, and like, he really means it. So let's get to know some of these guys. Shaun Wade, he's a defensive back from Ohio State, was drafted in the 5th round in 2021. I remember when he was at Ohio State, you know, before that final season, people were talking about him possibly being a 1st-round pick. Didn't have the best last year at Ohio State, but he did show some really good things on tape during his college career. But drafted by the Ravens in 2021, so Joe Ortiz drafted him in the 5th round, later traded to the Patriots in that same offseason. It was like a couple months after they drafted him. which is kind of rare for a team to draft someone and then immediately trade him. But he went to the Patriots and played 3 years for them, mostly as a backup, but then started getting more time last year due to injuries. 6'1", 195-pound corner. He played outside, in the slot, and in the box, so he's versatile. Played mostly on the outside because he's got the size to play on the outside, but Joe Hortiz liked him enough to give him a second chance in LA after drafting him to the Ravens and then trading him away. I actually like this signing because I thought he was pretty good at times at Ohio State. So we'll see what happens with him, see if he gets called up to the roster at any point in the season, because I think this is one of those guys that could. And then Dez Fitzpatrick is a wide receiver from Louisville who was drafted in the 4th round in 2021 by the Titans. Primarily lines up out wide, not really a slot wide receiver, and he was traded to the Steelers in 2023. Primarily worked as a gunner on special teams for them. Didn't really play much wide receiver, but he did have a pretty good preseason for the Steelers as he caught all 5 of his targets for 130 yards. But in the regular season, he has not caught a single pass since his rookie year in 2021. So this is definitely mostly a special team signing, kind of like the Hassan Haskins signing was, but he also adds depth at wide receiver in case of an injury or something. This is interesting to me because they released Cornelius Johnson, who is mostly a special teams wide receiver, and to replace him, they got another wide receiver that is mostly a special teams guy in Dez Fitzpatrick. So I guess Cornelius Johnson wasn't really improving in practices and training camp, and they didn't like what they saw from him enough to the point where they just released him from the practice squad altogether and went out and got somebody else that can do what they wanted him to do. So that's that signing in my eyes. And also, I think it's really interesting that the Browns released Tyler Huntley very shortly after the Chargers made the trade for Taylor Heinicke. We all know the Browns were waiting for someone to trade for Tyler Huntley. That's why they kept him on that final 53, because they wanted to use him as trade bait. You don't keep 4 quarterbacks on your roster. And maybe the Browns were asking for too much from all these other teams, and the Chargers included. And the Chargers, they didn't bite on that and decided to go and look for another quarterback that they didn't want to pay, more than a 5th or 6th round pick, because maybe that's what they were asking for him. And that quarterback that they decided to get was Taylor Heinicke, because I can't believe that Taylor Heinicke was their first option. It had to have been going through the process of, okay, this is our first guy, second guy, maybe he was the 3rd guy or something like that. But I think Tyler Huntley just made a lot of sense for the Chargers, and I'm certain that they were at least talking to the Browns. But yeah, after they got Taylor Heinicke, the Browns released Tyler Huntley, and now he's back on the Ravens. So that's how that all played out. But, we have Taylor Heinicke now. He's certainly a capable backup. The Browns must have been asking for like a 5th round pick, and Joe Hortiz didn't want to give that up because he values every single pick. So going out and getting Taylor Heinicke for a conditional 6/7th round pick, it's basically nothing. So, the difference between Taylor Heinicke and Tyler Huntley, is it worth that much, like a 5th round pick versus a conditional 7th? I don't think it's worth that much. I think Taylor Heinicke certainly is closer to Tyler Huntley than that draft pick is closer to the other draft pick. You know what I mean? Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is Joey Bosa being back at practice, but without that club on his left hand, because he did have that hand injury from way back when the Chargers were playing the Rams in joint practice. Now he has the club off, so hopefully that means that it's not bothering him anymore and that he'll be 100% healthy for week 1, because we know that he's playing, but is he going to be 100%? And that is everything that you need to know from the Chargers today. If you did not see my last video, then you can click right here.